Good morning. So the dough has been cold proofing overnight. It's just about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we put in 5:30 yesterday evening. And here's our doughs. They look good. And now we're gonna score them and get them into the oven. And I'll show you how I do that. The first thing I'm going to do is get out one of my Dutch ovens. Now my oven is preheated at 450, and the Dutch ovens have been preheating as well at 450. Okay, we'll start with this one. And the first thing I do is I take a little cornmeal and put it on the bottom. I like the texture of this on the bottom of the loaf. Gives it that classic bread look, but it also helps from the dough sticking. Okay, I take my bread mat, I center it. This mat is oven proof. Put it on my Lazy Susan. Flip it over. And gently lift off my Banneton basket. And you'll see that the liner sticks a little bit, but it comes loose. Just don't pull it off real fast. You don't want to de-shape your loaf. Now this loaf, we're not going to do anything with the flour. We're just going to score it. And you see I'm scoring it pretty deep. And I do it, there's a little seam in that liner, and it leaves a line, and I kind of go along that line. I make 5 shallower little hashes on each side like this. And up top I do 1, 2, 3 for the top. Make sure you put this away. I made the mistake of, in a hurry, throwing it down here. The next time I went to do it, I went like this, and I cut myself real bad right here. Pick her up. Get the lid on. In the oven it goes. Okay, now for the next one. I changed the view here real quick so you can see a little closer how I prep the loaf for the oven. Take a little cornmeal, spread it on top, set that aside. We take our bread mat, center it real nice, Lazy Susan on top, flip the whole kit and caboodle over. Now this one we're going to do just a little bit different than I did the other one. This one I'm going to take, this is just bread flour, and I'm going to dust it just lightly and spread around, giving it a coating all the way around of the bread flour. And any extra, just kind of dust it off. Now, right here, if you can see, there's that seam I told you about earlier. And I'm going to score it right along that seam. Then up here, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to lift this up and see if you can see. You see how you can see the bubbles in the score there? It looks like it almost looks like cooked bread. That's a good sign. Into the Dutch oven. See what I told you about leaving this? I did it again. Trying to break myself of that habit, but it's hard once you start. You're in a hurry, you forget. All right, let's get this last one in. Set the timer for 30 minutes. Okay, so now both loaves of bread are in the oven. We're going to bake them with the lids on for 30 minutes at 450 degrees. My oven is preheated, and the Dutch ovens are both preheated. I have a thermal laser thermometer that I take the temperatures of the Dutch ovens before I go ahead and put the dough in. And then the whole point of the Dutch oven is it's going to trap the steam around the loaf. Most modern ovens are vented, specifically mine. Right up here, there's a little vent. If you hold your hand here, it's hot air coming out of there. As a matter of fact, if I leave my tea kettle, I always keep water in my tea kettle. If you leave your tea kettle close to that and you go and you sit, before the 30 minutes are up, the tea kettle will start whistling. That's how much heat's coming out. Bad news for us is it's letting the steam in the oven come out. It's venting that steam out of the oven. And there's no way to stop that from happening. I've heard some people say turn the oven off. My fan keeps running to cool the oven down even after you shut it off for a while. So that doesn't help. So the only way to really do it is with the Dutch ovens, unless you're lucky enough to have one of the ovens that has a steam bake function. That'd be a great thing to have. Unfortunately, I don't. So we use a Dutch oven, and it traps the steam. So when you take the lid off, because it's been covered, the dough will be a little brown, but not much. So then we're going to bake it for another 15 minutes uncovered to get that dark, crusty, hard outside crust that we like on an artisan loaf. All right, so we're going to let it bake for 30 minutes. Then we'll take the lid off and we'll show you what it looks like at 30 minutes. Then we'll finish up the bake with the 15 minutes uncovered, and we'll look at the loaf then. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. This is when you find out if you had a good bake or if you got a couple duds. Now, when I take these lids off, if you look, hopefully, you'll be able to see the little bit of steam come out, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I say it traps the steam. Let's take a look. A little bit of steam there. That's a nice looking loaf. A little bit of steam there. That's a nice looking loaf too. All right. Now we're going to close her up. Set the timer for 15 minutes. And we'll take a look when they're out of the oven and done. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes and the loaves are done. So let's get them out. Here's the first one. And what I do to make sure it's done, it's not burnt on the bottom, but it's nice and brown. And you give it a little thump. It should sound like a hollow door. All right, that's a nice loaf. We'll set that there. Put this one off to the side. And get the next one out. Okay, not burnt. Nice thump sound, hollow sound. Set that off. And there you go. There's my loaves of bread. They both look good. Now we're going to let them cool. And after a little while, I'll come back and I'll evaluate the loaves and cut one open and see what the crumb looks like. You never want to cut them hot. You want it to trap the moisture in, but also it tends to still inside. If you cut it, the crumb tends to collapse in on itself until it's cool. So always let it fully cool. Though I know sometimes it's hard to resist, but We'll come back in a couple hours after these have cooled off. We'll cut one open and we'll take a close look at each loaf and do a bit of an evaluation. There's definitely a better of the two. I know what happened with this one is a little bit better than this one, though this one's a little bit bigger. Um, there was, when I scored it, there was big bubble right here, and you have no control over that. You want the bubbles, you want them to be interspersed, but sometimes they show up where you're not expecting them. In this case, it was right here, and it kind of threw the year off a little bit. This one looks much nicer, but I would sell either one, and I'd be perfectly happy putting either one on my kitchen table. But we'll take a closer look when we come back after they've cooled. Okay, so it's been a few hours now, and these are cool enough to handle. And we'll take a look at each loaf. Okay, this is the first one that I had shaped. It's a little bit smaller. I did weigh these right before I started the video here. This one's about 630 grams. This one's about 730 grams. So when I cut it, I wasn't exactly half, but it was pretty close. And I did realize when I was shaping them that the first dough I made was slightly smaller than the second one. So this loaf has a nice defined ear on it. Looks nice. The decorative here looks nice. Nice color to it. This is the one that I had shaped with the three-fold. If you remember, I fold one ear down, left the saddle. Okay, that's the one that I folded this way. This is the second one that I made, and like I said, I felt that it was a bit bigger when I shaped it. And this is the one where I only folded once and once. So that might account for the little bit of difference. This one's much tighter, even though it's a little bit smaller. It's still it kind of has a better shape to it than this one does. But this one still looks good. It has a little bit less defined ear. That may be just the way, the angle of my blade when I cut it. But it looks good. Now, this one, a little too pretty to just cut open to show the inside. So we're going to set it aside. I'm going to give this to somebody, a neighbor or a friend or something. This one, we're going to go ahead and cut open and take a look at the crumb. Okay. And here we go. This is what you want to see. It's a little bit on the open side. There's, varied size and interspersed and kind of random looking little bubbles. This is the way I like my bread to look, and this is the way it normally does. You can make a sandwich out of this. I like to have it with your heavy meals for the fall. It's also good for, having cheese and meat and cheese and a little bit of wine or bruschetta. I think it looks pretty good. All right. So there we go. There's my bread, and I showed you how to make it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and hopefully subscribe. I'm going to be doing more videos, more sourdough videos, some yeast videos. I'm sure some people right now are saying, oh, I'd love to make this bread, but I don't have the time to make a sourdough. No problem. The next video I'm going to make is how to make a poolish that you can actually use as a one-to-one substitute for the sourdough in this recipe. And it will give you a very similar looking, very similar crumb. It will have a slightly different taste though, because it's not sourdough, but it'll still have a better taste than just a quick yeast bread where you cook it and you make it and cook it in 3 hours. Most of my breads have a lot more time to them. It takes about 24 hours to make one of my loaves, from feeding it and making the levain in the morning, mix it in the afternoon and shaping it in the evening, cold proofing it overnight, and then baking it the following day. That's what it takes. My rye bread actually takes 3 days to make. And I'll probably be posting a video about that eventually. So give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And there you go. Thank you.